the 14th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And in fact, this is a fun fact for you, Barry, before I even introduce you. This is a remake of the 2008 film Iron Man. It's called Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I think we were probably going to get to that at some stage, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Where a brilliant egomaniac is taken down a peg and thought that he needs to sacrifice himself to save the world.
Well, it's when you get 14 films deep, it's tough. It gets tough.
In fairness, what they remade Spider-Man within when was actually no, that took them about 11 years, didn't they?
Wait, from '02 to
11, I think, was it?
Oh God, I think it may have been 12. I think it may have been 10 years. I think.
Yeah, so it only took them 8 years to remake Iron Man. In fairness, this was a more imaginative remake.
Yeah, they did. I mean, they didn't have they didn't have their equivalent of Uncle Ben dying twice.
They've added some magic. Oh, I'm being dismissed. I actually like this film, but Doctor Strange 2016, starring Benedict Cumberbatch. Do you like this film, Barry?
Yeah, I did. I liked this film. I actually really liked this film when I first saw it. I was very, very positive on it. Indeed, watching it back, some of the less remarkable, kind of more middle of the road aspects of it, I think came out. But I enjoyed it a whole bunch. Benedict Cumberbatch is the kind of actor that I feel like I've never really. He's great, but something about him irks me, so I never really get excited at the prospect of him in a film. But then or a TV show even. But he always delivers, or over delivers even. So I thought he was very, very good. Again, the character is very Tony Stark, but I think he puts a nice little twist on it.
Yeah, the specific twist being his weird American accent.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's so popular now, and he gets so many roles across the pond. He kind of always has to do that.
There is the question, though. Both Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Both of them are doing dodgy American accents. Whose is worse?
Oh, Freeman's is way worse. Freeman's is way worse.
Do you think? Is there that big a gap between them?
Yeah, I didn't think Cumberbatch's was especially good or anything. It was pretty ropey, but especially rewatching these films for the purpose of this podcast, I thought Martin Freeman's is just dreadful.
The only time his. Benedict Cumberbatch's is okay. The only time I'm like, oh, that's terrible, is when he's doing his no, and he's doing this weird American accent, and it just sounds terrible.
Yeah, well, thank God it's only a small role.
This film directed by Scott Derrickson. Have you heard of Scott Derrickson?
No, never before this.
Neither have I. He directed Sinister, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and Deliver Us from Evil.
Ugh. Sinister is like a movie I wish was a lot better. There's some cool aspects to it, but it's a really kind of bad. I don't want to go. We could probably do a whole other podcast where I could talk about that and how I wish it was a better film. But it's just kind of a subpar modern horror film with loads of jump scares. Yeah. It's a fairly unremarkable filmography there, considering he made this, which is a fairly solidly made film.
Yeah, the most interesting thing that stuck out to me, though, is those are 3 horror films, and this is not really a horror film.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of talked about this on the last few episodes as well, is that Marvel just really getting an eclectic and slightly weird collection of directors involved in their projects, and like James Gunn being a really good example, and I respect that. It takes a bit of it takes an eye for talent to look at a weird collection of films, or maybe even in the case of Sinister and stuff like that, look at a film that's not that good, but say, this director has an idea what he's doing, or this director could make a great film, and more importantly, they could make the very exact kind of film that we like our films to be. And they've had a pretty good success rate, so I think this was a solid outing for him as a director.
The cynic in me might think they're looking for agreeable people as well, then, though.
Yeah, but sometimes the search for people who roll over and do what you want can get really negative results. I mean, that was kind of the X-Men 3 problem, was just that there were creative differences, and Fox got someone who would do what we want, and do it without any panache or back talking. Likewise, George Lucas, getting Rick McCullum and other people for the prequels who just kowtowed to every single thing he ever wanted in those movies, So I think modern Marvel has a good balance of finding people who are malleable to their demands, but still have a little bit of a creative spark. And obviously, people like Edgar Wright were just maybe a little off center for them, and that didn't work out. But in this case, it did.
If we're talking about like the larger Disney conglomerate, they had a recent director walk away again because of creative issues. Rian Johnson with Star Wars, or not Rian? Did you call him the other one? Colin Trevorrow. There we go.
Trevorrow, that was it. Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think it's something we have talked about. I think specifically with regards to Ant-Man. I mean, it's like you want to get someone who's got this creative vision, but they have a little checklist of things you have to do, and it needs to fit certain parameters. And so they got JJ back, which is after seeing 7, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was disappointed after seeing 7 that JJ wasn't on board for the rest of them, but back in for 9 is good. But yes, anyway, Doctor Strange.
And that can make you think about, like, directing these films is probably pretty difficult because you do need to concede a certain amount to the studio. Like, no matter how grand your vision is, or even if you're like J.J. Abrams, who is like this world-renowned director, you still have to, like, they're Disney and it's their movie. So, like, you can only enforce a certain amount of your creative vision on them before they'll go, this is the film we want to make.
And they have the pick of the industry, really.
Yep. And everyone in the world wants to direct a Star Wars movie.
Absolutely, yeah. And not only are they themselves Disney, which is a name that's synonymous with quality and making money, but the two brands they have beneath them, Marvel and Star Wars, are things that people also want to get on board with, either financially or because they have admiration for the franchises. So yeah, lots of options for the power is very much in their hands. So,
did you have any idea who Doctor Strange was?
I was familiar with him just from being a kind of superhero fan and picking things up through osmosis, and I'm sure he's had some cameos in some like cartoons I'd have seen here or there. I knew what the character looked like, and I knew he was some kind of mystic, magical character, rather than someone who fell in a vat of acid and got a power. But I did not know the specifics of him at all really before this.
I saw it randomly on Sky one day because Marvel have all these like little animated films, and there was just like a 60-minute Doctor Strange origin story film. And I remember watching that and thinking, "Hey, this guy's pretty cool," and then I forgot he existed.
Yeah, definitely not one of the heavy hitters, but again, we are into the depths here where they've started to dig deep for some of the they've used the strength of their brand and the strength of the how acclaimed the films with the bigger characters are to give a little boost to some of these smaller guys. So I was only vaguely familiar with Doctor Strange before this.
So probably the thing most people will talk about this film, like that it does very, very differently. And it's kind of like Ant-Man, which Ant-Man had those like Ant sequences where he was shrunk down, and that was very visually inventive. But like the action in this film is just like mind blowing in how it's shot.
Yeah, and it's really crazy. And they throw a lot of unique things throughout the course of the film. Like they show very early the mirroring and the contorting worlds and stuff like that, and they show that a couple of times, but they also have a couple of other kind of neat visual tricks over the course of the film. So it's got a lot going on, and it feels like one of those kind of weird action movies where you don't quite expect what the next set piece will have. It's very, very unique, and it certainly helps it stand out. And we've talked about kind of how the sameness of this universe's films rather can hurt them, and so the action scenes certainly to set this one apart a lot.
Yeah, and there's a lot of words in this film, like words like Caecilius and Dormammu and the Eye of Agamotto, and just shouting these. In fairness, I don't think it ever gets bogged down in that, when I think it very easily could have.
Yeah, no, it's a fast moving romp that keeps things fairly basic. I mean, yeah, sure, there are lots of character names and items that sound like something Indiana Jones would try and steal, but I think they keep it relatively simple. And a lot of these Marvel films, yeah, they have a fairly simplistic plot, but I do also think ones like this where they've gone, okay, here's a character who's completely separate from the 13 others we've spoken about, doing his own thing, dealing with mysticism, which isn't really something we've talked about yet in this universe. So I guess it probably wouldn't be worth our while trying to go hyper complicated with the plot, because we might give the audience whiplash from taking them in this kind of new direction and throwing too much at them.
Because that is the thing, like, you really couldn't have introduced this character much earlier, because, like, it's a relatively grounded film. Like, Iron Man is pretty grounded, even, like, Captain America, it's all kind of grounded in, like, almost, like, war and basic... There's no mysticism there. There's no magic. There's no the power of the stars. But now it's just like there's mirror worlds and there's all these magic people and they can just teleport everywhere. And there's magic within some people apparently.
Yeah, in our hearts.
Yeah, there's magic in Benedict Cumberbatch's hearts.
So that's why he's such a good hero. He has several.
Yes.
But I think it's definitely not something they could have done earlier, and it's tough. I mean, like when you have a grounded universe, it is tough to introduce something like this. It's one thing I know that DC kind of struggled with is because straight away there in Suicide Squad they've got like magic characters, and it's just it's kind of tough to. It just doesn't quite feel right. At the very least, with the Marvel stuff, they've introduced their universe, and then several films deep, they introduce this guy, and he is an outsider, and he is weird, and he is different from everything else. But at least that's kind of acknowledged in a way. And I'm sure when he teams up with everyone, he'll be something of an oddball in the group.
Because he just has magic. But I suppose at this day, like they've slowly introduced Infinity Stones. They've slowly like Thor kind of leans more into the mysticism than any other character, so there's a little of that over there in the Thor Asgard universe. So they have kind of like, and of course there's Guardians of the Galaxy, which is basically space magic. So they've slowly eked all of that into their films in a way that makes a character like Doctor Strange actually make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do fit things not perfectly, but considering the sheer breadth of the characters they have, they fit things together relatively well, I feel.
Yeah. What was the name of that? This film made me think of it, and I should have looked it up. You know that Matt Damon film where he's going through doors and he can just pop out anywhere in the different parts of the city, and the doors connect the place? Do you remember that film?
I have never heard of this. I'm fascinated, but I have never heard of this.
It's The Adjustment Bureau.
The Bourne Identity.
No, it's not. That would be a much better film.
That would be great.
I think it was called The Adjustment Bureau.
I've never heard of that.
Where there was like these people who like dictated the direction of people's lives, and they did it in secret, and they had these magic doors that allowed them to travel around the world. For some reason, like the doors that just traveled randomly between places in this film reminded me of that. I like that film.
Yeah,
I remember that being a good film.
Well, I'll add it to the list. We can start a new series with that. Yeah, the location hopping in this was pretty neat. The New York, they had the three what are they? I can't remember what they were called. The like domains they had to protect Earth, like New York, London, and another one. So they were kind of hopping back and forth between them, and you got scenes in China and stuff like that. Nice change of pace. I mean, like Civil War was an awful. I mean, of course, infamously, their big climactic fight was in the airport.
Yep.
And even outside of that scene, there's a lot of motorway and city skies and
what's easy to shoot.
What's easy to shoot, right? And locations just weren't important in that story in the grand scheme of things.
Which is actually interesting. You say that about Civil War, where it's like they did all like the globe hopping stuff. But you're right, it was always just here's a road that happens to be in Berlin, I guess.
Yeah, and like the opening, the opening set piece that results in the civilian casualties. Like I can't even remember what city that was supposed to be in. It looked like it was just. I mean, it looked sort of slum-esque, I guess. But I could not even begin to guess. And you and I only watched that film not long ago. What country that was supposed to be? It's all very unimportant. Whereas this, they made a big deal out of the locations and. Lots of great, kind of Chinese like architecture and imagery and just some stuff to kind of cleanse the palate a little bit and mix some stuff up in the Marvel formula.
Yeah, I did like that the end of this film, spoilers, this is a review podcast, of course there's going to be spoilers, but the end of this film is basically he defeats the villain with logic.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
It was it wasn't a climactic, plunge a knife into a weak point, rip out the heart of the bad man, Iron Man thing. Yeah, and that was. I mean, I remember when I first saw this film, enjoying it for the most part, thinking it was really good, and then the final act kind of really like made me smile, and I came out of it. I think that's probably why I rated it so highly the first time I came out, is because it ended so strong. But Doctor Strange gets Dormammu in the time loop. And Dormammu just kills him over and over and over again endlessly, but is never satisfied because he's stuck just in that moment, killing him forever. So he eventually yields, and Strange breaks the time loop. That was a very, very clever conclusion, and a great way to kind of use the gimmick of what the character is and what his power is in an interesting way, so that the conclusion of the conflict involves the very, very specific abilities of Doctor Strange, which is something I appreciated.
Yep, and they were even like teasing that earlier in the film. It's like, you shouldn't mess with time, you don't know the consequences.
Yeah, that which is kind of the classic, I'm a trainee martial artist / assassin / Jedi / whatever movie you're watching. I'm
pretty sure Doctor Strange is all of those things.
all of those things. Or I mean, this trope is even in Game of Thrones, which I just got caught up on, which is, we don't go over to that part of the library. Those are the forbidden books that'll make you extra badass, but you're not allowed to read them. That was. But I always enjoy that trope when it's a fantasy story of an outsider training to be the prodigy of whatever mystical cult is in this movie. He used the forbidden powers to ultimately solve the problem.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you thought too much about the logic of that final scene, it's like all time travel films. Don't poke at it. Just don't.
Yeah. Even the clever ones, where you're like, oh, that's great. That's it's such a clever solution to thing. And then if you think about it for longer than a second, you're like, actually no, it doesn't quite work. But who cares?
Yeah, we had some side characters. We had Tilda Swinton playing a whitewashed version of the main character. That was a big controversy going to this film.
Yeah, it was. And in general, I'm always like a bit, any like major Hollywood blockbuster that's like tackling any kind of mystical Asian culture, I'm always watching it going, I wonder, like, are Chinese people going to watch this and think it's the stupidest, dumbest, stereotypical thing ever? So I mean, and her, obviously her being cast, and she's a great actress, obviously, and she's great in this, but that was a little odd. But she was one of many amusing. Well, she wasn't amusing, but she was one of many good side characters, and there were some amusing ones.
Yeah, like Wong.
Wong was very good. He's in a couple of things. The actor,
Benedict Wong. Wong is his name.
Oh, well, there you go. I recognized him from somewhere, but he was I think he's kind of a character actor of sorts. I feel like just from a couple of different things.
I think where I remember him from, and this is going to become the Matt Damon cast now, is The Martian. He was in that too.
I never saw The Martian, and I really wanted to. But yeah, and there was also who was Doctor Strange's begrudging partner?
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yes.
I like the way you just deftly got around trying to pronounce Chiwetel Ejiofor.
I actually forgot that was the actor. I was actually going for the character's name, which I also forgot. But
it was mystical sounding. Began with an M.
Mordo. I was going to say Mono.
Yeah, that's Bono's brother.
Bono's brother, yeah. I actually did a movie podcast thing, just like covering like the Oscars for the year where 12 Years a Slave was nominated, and so I did have to read his name, and I'm sure I butchered it quite poorly, but yeah, a very talented actor. I thought he was very good. The supporting cast in general was very, very good. Until I rewatched this film for the purposes of this podcast, I completely forgot Rachel McAdams was in it.
When I first saw this film, have you seen the U.S. Office?
No.
Do you know what Pam from The Office, Jenna Fisher? Do you know what Jenna Fisher looks
like?
Yes,
I know Jenna Fisher. Yeah.
She looked just like Jenna Fisher in this film.
Really? You think so? I watched it and I just thought, oh man, I forgot she was in this.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those many kind of odd Marvel Cinematic Universe castings that will always kind of catch you off guard. But she's solid in this. I like Amy. Amy. I always make that mistake. It's what to call her Amy. Even though they are completely different actresses and don't even really look alike. I like Rachel McAdams quite a bit, and I thought she was good in this. The dynamic between them was solid. I thought not the on screen romance or dynamic of the century, but I thought it was okay.
Yeah. She very much just like takes a back seat, doesn't she? She at least she doesn't disappear altogether. They pop her back up there in the middle act a little. But...
Yeah, and that's a good scene as well, where she where she comes back. But yeah, it's very much kind of here's your origin story, and in general, the kind of origin story takes a little bit of a backseat. Like by the end of the film, you'd probably forget that
his hands are dreadfully disfigured and all that. Yeah,
yeah, that was the reason he went on the journey. But it's like I think, but it's tough because they told that story and then kind of forgot about it. But also, I feel like a lot of modern audiences are burned out on just obsessing over the origin story for a whole film.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where I kind of land on that because I am burned out on excessively drawn out and long origin stories, but at the same time, I also don't want to just see them quickly squeezed in 20 minutes and then shirked off so we can just get to the action. I mean, when a push comes to shove, Batman Begins is still one of my favorite films probably ever. Maybe not top 10, but it's up there, and that is just certainly like the first 2/3 of it are just all origin story before the real. It's really only the final act is where Batman's actually kind of solving an actual current problem. So I don't know. I think it's just part and parcel of a superhero lag or tiredness or however you want to say it.
I think it helps when the origin story is relatively unknown because not that many people really know Doctor Strange's origin story. Even Batman, it's like everyone knows parents are killed, becomes Batman. But all of the film versions of Batman have generally skipped over that. The bit in the middle they never actually portrayed. Where you see Bruce Wayne as a kid, Martha Wayne is killed, Martha, and then we get straight to him being Batman. Whereas, so I think that's part of why Batman Begins worked so well because that in between bit where he's just like, I'm going to build myself a Batcave and I'm going to go training and become super badass at beating people up, and here's where I get the suit from. I don't think anything that hasn't been portrayed that much. Whereas when it's just Spider-Man or Superman or other characters whose origin stories we've seen so many times, just don't want that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Rachel McAdams. I thought their chemistry was good. At least they were good on screen together.
Yeah, they were very solid. Yeah.
And this film was punched up by Dan Harmon of Community and Rick and Morty fame. So you can, I think you can see some of that. Apparently, they only shot some later scenes that they inserted into the film, but I think you can see some of that influence there.
Yeah, and I think I remember when it first came out, there was maybe it's a funny film. There's some good laughs. I can remember, I know there's some criticism that maybe some of the jokes maybe didn't quite fit with the tone of the rest of it. Obviously they're in there pretty early with the "yes, we have Wi-Fi" joke. So some of it was a little, some of the jokes were a little out of place, but generally speaking, I thought there was the usual solid mix of laughs in there for a Marvel film.
Yeah, and like one of the big like mid-scene fight scenes is built around the magic cape being uncooperative.
And that's great, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
The cape stuff was all really fun.
I forgot to mention this film did introduce that new Marvel intro with the
one we hate.
The one we hate, yeah, the one with the freaking live action cutscenes projected onto the Marvel logo, and it's like, no, it's terrible.
Yeah, that's bad.
Especially because like the classic like comic flippy one is really cool and simplistic, and it goes back to the Marvel roots, and it's nice. Don't change things, Marvel.
Yeah, come on. When something works, stick with it.
Yeah, Stanley was sitting on a bus.
I don't even think I caught that when I rewatched it. I'm sure I saw it the first time, but
they were fighting? I think there was the Mirror World fight in the middle of the film.
Oh, okay.
And Stanley was just on a bus there, and they bashed against the window. They thought that went through a lot. Our mid-credit scene, Thor was in it to set up Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, I like that, and of course because he was noticeably absent from Civil War. So yeah, this is alright. I liked it.
Yeah, he's doing things. He has problems that need solving.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, because if you remember what's the second Captain America film? Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
In Winter Soldier, like, they name drop Stephen Strange as one of the people who Hydra are going to target. So, like, I know that's a throwaway reference for people to just go like, oh, he said Stephen Strange.
Yeah.
They didn't think that one through. But, so the idea is, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. know who Stephen Strange is. Technically before he even becomes Doctor Strange, because I'm not sure when this film happens.
I don't think there's any occurrence in it that means it couldn't be, say, post Avengers but pre. I don't think there's anything in it that would prevent it from being pre Winter Soldier. Like, I don't, and when I say pre, I don't mean like he's been Doctor Strange for 20 years before, but I just mean like it could happen just kind of there in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are references to the Avengers and shit like that happening, as there is in all these films. But yeah, I don't think there's necessarily. So yeah, it could be a couple of years pre 2016.
Because there was the theory that, when he crashes his car, he's on the phone to somebody talking about like, oh, somebody needs a major surgery.
Yeah.
There was a theory that he was talking about Rhodey there after he was shot down in Civil War. So.
But although that's that is just a theory. I mean, I don't think there was, and nothing concrete on that. But yeah. So unless maybe Shield, I don't know. That's maybe they just got ahead of themselves in Winter Soldier and just. But
yeah, that's nearly certainly. So whoever the Russos wrote the Winter Soldier script, and it's like, it'd be neat if we threw a Doctor Strange reference in here, and they're like, Asher, go on.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
They don't think these things through. They just leave it for us to think through afterwards and then make things up.
The nerds will figure it out, and they'll write theories and make YouTube videos about it.
Yep, and podcast series, of course.
Of course.
The post-credit scene pretty much set up Doctor Strange 2 with Mordo being evil now.
Yeah, that was right.
Do you remember, what's the Green Lantern? Do you remember the Green Lantern film?
I didn't. I never saw it.
That film basically has the same thing. Whereas there's the whole Yellow is the evil of the universe in Green Lantern. Because, of course. So he has a sidekick pal who's like his pal throughout the film, and then at the end of the film, in the post-credit scene, he like steals the Yellow and becomes evil himself. It's basically the same ending. And
that movie will be out any day now.
Yep, I'm looking forward to that payoff, to that big cliffhanger at the end of the Green Lantern film. I'm sure Ryan Reynolds would love to don that imaginary suit again.
Yep, yeah, he's just waiting for the call.
Though I'm happy, I watched the credits, and at the very end of the credits, there's a line: "Driving while distracted can be hazardous to you and others on the road. Please drive responsibly."
Oh yeah, you gotta cover your bases.
So just in case somebody watches this film and thinks, "Geez, if I crash my car off a cliff into a river, I might get superpowers eventually too."
Yeah, there is no. This isn't how actual China works. Everyone, you can't go and get magic hands. Just FYI.
I'd love if that was the disclaimer. Screw the car thing. It's like, this isn't how actual China works.
Yeah, they'll put that in Doctor Strange too.
Doctor Strange, it's a good film. I like it.
Yeah, it's a solid watch, and it's a solid Marvel film if you want something that's just tonally a little bit different with the mirror world and the magic stuff that's just a little bit different from the Iron Mans and Avengers of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like if you ask the question, what if Sherlock was a surgeon but also magic? You'd get this film. And that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
That's all right.
Before we go, Barry, plugs?
I'll just plug the old Twitter there today. Not much else going on elsewhere at the moment, so just go to twitter.com/thebarrylad for updates on life. And if there are any other plugs, you'll find them on there.
Yeah, next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to revisiting that one. Was a bit mixed on it the first time I saw it, but I feel like I'm something of the low man on that because I know a lot of people who really like it. So yeah, looking forward to checking that out again.
Indeed, and I just saw it's been 3 months since we last did an episode of this. We won't leave it 3 months this time.
No, of course not.